Hi everyone, this is Tuplex. Welcome back. I've been busy doing a lot of planning since the last episode, and I could probably spend another week doing this, but I think I'm at the stage where I just have to start doing some stuff. What I have been up to is working out the plan for phase 2, which we'll get into shortly. I've been scanning a lot of drives for alternate recipes, and I have selected some which we're going to use in the build plan here. And like I said, I'll go over all that stuff. Since then, I've added dimensional depots to all of our storage, so we can see here in our cloud storage we have all sorts of good stuff in there. Including the steel beams and steel pipes that we're making over by the power plant. I also put a dimensional depot on the quick wire that we're making over near the Caterium, over here near the Caterium node. I just have a small setup making those wires, so we're doing good. Pretty much all of my containers are full at the moment. In fact, I think that we're even full or close to full on the smart plating. Yeah. So another thing that we'll need to do sometime in the near future is start using our smart splitters to send all of our production overflow into a sink so that we can start accumulating some more points. I do have some coupons available, but not a whole lot. I thought I had put those away somewhere. Maybe they're in here. Yeah, I've got 15 coupons right now. And I did purchase a few things. But first, let me show you this. I got a hypertube now that goes to the coal power plant. So let's take a little ride. And you can see what I've been busy doing. So one of the things I've been doing is designing a platform that I can use to run hypertubes like this one, power poles, and at some point it'll also include rails for trains. And then my intention is to connect all the different areas of our base with these platforms that are supported by these large concrete columns. That was one of the things that I unlocked from the Fix-It store. And I think that looks pretty nice, and it should allow us to fairly quickly build infrastructure connecting the various parts of our base. So I just wanted to show you how nice this is, that you can just jump in a tube and bam, you're over here at our power plant. And our starting steel factory. Which is still running. One thing that's a recent change to the game is it used to be that these hypertubes were one way only, but now you can actually put a hypertube entrance on both ends, and you can use the same tube to travel in both directions, as you can see. And of course, you could also jump up and use the zip line to get from point to point. But so far, I'm really liking this. This should help speed things up a bit as we're moving around the map. And like I said, when we add rails, I have a prototype over here of the platform that would include rails, and I'll show you that in a moment once we get back there. We haven't unlocked rails yet, but I just want to be prepared for it so that I don't have to rebuild things multiple times. And as you can see here, I added a platform here in our base to allow us to use the blueprint designer. All right, so I run up this ladder. I'm using the catwalk stairs here, and then I can get up here to use the blueprint designer. So what I did is I made a couple blueprints. So I have a platform that includes only the tubes. And actually I need to update this to remove that second tube You know, once I learned that you could go in both directions, I don't really need that anymore. And then I'll have a platform that will hold rail and allow for 2 rails with trains to pass underneath. And then I can put my power platform on top of that. So it would look something like this, right? So this will be wide enough for 2 train rails, 1 in each direction. And if we look at the blueprints, right, it's somewhat modular. So if I'm using rail, I can plop down the rail blueprint first, the rail base, and then I can put the power platform on top of that. And if I'm not going to have rail, like over here, I mean, I may have rail eventually. I don't know, but for now I don't have rail. Then I can just use that one. And it's fairly easy to lay these down. Let me get an aerial view so we can see better. So the way I have this designed is, you know, these platforms are 2x2, 2x2 foundations. And so what I can do is I can throw down a platform, and then it's 10 foundations away. So I just zoop out 10, and then I place the next platform. And as you can see here, you can do the power every 3rd platform. I'm not sure if it'll stretch any farther than that, but at least every 3rd platform is sufficient. You have enough reach with the wires. But the rails and the hypertubes have a maximum length of about 12.5 tiles. So so in between the power poles, we'll still have to have additional platforms for rails and for hypertubes to make sure that those stay connected. But this will be a good way to get around the base and to eventually set up a rail network. All right. So, yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about that. So let's take a look at our plan for phase 2. And this is what I set up in the modeler, and it looks like a lot. I guess it is a lot, but it's not so bad once you start to take a closer look at it. So in phase 2, we need the smart plates, we need the versatile frameworks, and we need automated wiring. Now, smart plating we're already producing, and in fact, we've already produced all that we need for this phase. It's sitting over there in the container, so we're good there. So the phase 2 factory has to include these 2 components in order for us to finish phase 2. So if we look at the modeler, you can see that I have those 2 being exported. And how do I decide how many to make per minute? Well, when it comes to the project parts, I'm just doing one machine, right? So one assembler or whatever machine is needed to make that part. I just designed it to max out one machine. So in this case, it'll be 5 a minute on the versatile frameworks, and it'll be 2.5 per minute on the automated wiring. And then I go back from there. So let's start with the first of these, which is the versatile framework. So that requires modular frames, and we already know how to make those, and it requires steel beams. So for the modular frames, I'm using an alternate recipe, which is called steeled frame. And let's take a look at those 2 recipes. So the original modular frame takes 3 reinforced plates and 12 rods to make 2, right? So it's about 1.5 reinforced iron plates per modular frame. And using the steeled frame recipe, we use 1 reinforced iron plate to 1.5 modular frames. So so it's a little bit better on iron. It's a little bit faster. We make 3 per minute instead of 2 per minute. And we use steel pipes rather than rods, which we'll be making an excess of over here right? So in this case, I only need 0.83 machines, less than a full machine making modular frames to keep this fed, right? And then those modular frames are being produced with the reinforced iron plate. I'm just using the standard recipe here because it's only, it's less than one machine needed. I only need 1 2/3 per minute. It doesn't take much. So I have a constructor making the cast screws. Now that's an alternate recipe that we already unlocked and used in phase 1, and iron plate. So we only need 20 ingots a minute to make the reinforced iron plate and feed those in. And then the steel is feeding multiple components, but what you'll see here is I'm going to be running steel using solid steel ingots. That's a recipe that I mentioned before, but we haven't looked at yet. So let's take a look at steel ingots. Right, so normally on steel, you need 3 iron and 3 coal to make 3 ingots. With this recipe, you make iron ingots first, and then you can feed 2 iron ingots, which is 2 iron ore. 2 ingots and 2 coal gives you 3 ingots. Right, so it's another processing step to make the iron ingots first, but you increase your productivity and your production speed by quite a bit. So I think I've used this recipe for every game that I've played. I really like it. So you can get a lot more steel production out of a given amount of iron and coal. So in this case, I'm going to need 280 coal, which is a pretty significant amount. And I'm going to be making 4 machines with iron pipes and 5 machines with steel beams, right? I'm going to be sending some extras into bins. So once this is done, we'll be able to replace the steel production that we have over by the power facility. We'll tear that down, and then I could use the 2 coal nodes that we have over there to make more power. So that's my plan there, but not until this is put into place. And I designed this to give us more beams than pipes, because I think I typically use more beams than pipes, but we can always adjust the balance between beams and pipes as we go forward if our needs change. Okay. Yeah, and then we just divert 30 a minute of those steel beams over here to make the reinforced or the versatile frameworks, rather. Okay. Now the next one will be the automated wiring, and those take stators and cables. Stators we make from copper wire and steel pipes. And then the cables we also make from copper wire. So as you can imagine, we'll need to produce a bit of wire. And in this case, we need quite a lot of wire for this plan overall. We're going to need 260 a minute. And with the standard recipe, that would be something around 10 or 11 machines and a lot of copper ingots. But I got another alternate recipe, and this one is called fused wire. So let's take a look at that one. Oh, sorry. I just need to search for wire. Okay. So the normal wire recipe gives us 1 copper ingot to 2 wire. And with the fused wire recipe, we can use 4 copper ingots to get 30. So it's much more efficient in its use of copper. And we get this by adding in a single ingot of deuterium to the recipe. Okay, so we take 4 copper, 1 deuterium, and we get 30 wire. So not only is it much more efficient on the use of copper, but the production rate is 3 times as high. So we'll get 90 per minute out of a machine versus 30 a minute. The drawback here, though, is that we have to use an assembler instead of a constructor, but I'm totally fine with that. Okay, and then in that case, I need less than 3 machines making copper wire instead of having like 10 or 11 constructors. And all we need is a little bit of deuterium ingot injected in there to help us out. Right, so in this case, I need a little bit more than a full node, a little bit more than a normal node. I'm going to be using Mark II miners on all of these, I think. Yeah, so just a little bit of copper will stretch a long way here to make the automated wiring. All right, so speaking of Caterium, let's take a look at that. We have a pure Caterium node that I currently have a normal miner on that's giving us 120 a minute. We'll use about 9 per minute in our factory, and the rest will just be going into storage. Sorry, not all of it. Some of it will be going into storage, and some of the Caterium, the quick wire, will be going to make AI limiters, which you'll remember is an ingredient to the smart splitters. So we want to automate the production of those because we'll use smart splitters quite a bit throughout the rest of the game. To make those, we need a little bit of copper sheet, and that's where the rest of the copper ore is going to make the copper sheets. Okay, so and then the AI limiters will go into storage for us. I also wanted to automate motors because we'll need motors to build machines and equipment going forward. So we're building stators up here. I should probably just update this stator production to give us all that we need here. I don't want to make stators in 2 different locations for the same phase. So I'll fix that at some point. I'm not sure if I don't think we'll get that far today. But yeah, so once again, making stators from wire and from steel pipe. And then we're also making rotors from wire and from steel pipe. This is an alternate recipe called steel rotors. Right, so the normal recipe is 5 rods and 25 screws. In this case, we're going to use 2 steel pipe and 6 wire. And again, we get a little bit more output, and since we already have steel and wire over there, and the steel is making efficient use of the iron, yeah, we're going to use that recipe so that we don't have to make rods and screws, more of them. And then that'll go into the motors. And I think I cover, encased beams, encased industrial beams. That's another ingredient that we need to build things with. So we'll start producing those for our personal use. And we do that by just making some concrete to go along with some of the steel beams. And I'll just run a machine making encased industrial beams. And those will go into storage too. Okay. And then finally, we have the SAM, reanimated SAM. I already have a small biomass powered setup making these, but I'll run the factory power over to that at some point, just so that we can keep this stuff coming, because we'll need those so that we can make more dimensional depots and other stuff from the alien technology tree. So, like I said, it looks like a lot, but essentially what we're going to need here are iron. We need a lot of iron. We need a lot of coal. And then we need some copper, some limestone, and some Caterium to make all this happen. And if we take a look at the map, here I set it up to show those resources on the map. And we can see here, obviously this coal we're already using, but we have more coal over here. There are 4 normal coal nodes, with Mark II miners, that'll give us 480 a minute, and we need 280, right? So there's more than enough coal over there. Sorry, got too many screens going here. So there's more than enough coal. There's a normal copper node. There's limestone in a couple places. There's a pure limestone node here. There's a pure iron here, and there's normal iron over here. So to make a long story short, I think this area right here is going to be good for us because it contains everything that we need, including the Caterium, which is over here. I don't think I have that shown at the moment. Let's add that onto the map. There we go. Yeah, so we have a Caterium node there. We can just send some ingots this way. So my plan is to build the phase 2 factory over here in this valley, since it's kind of in the center of all these various resources that we need to make it happen. So, accordingly, I have run some power over. Now, in this case, I didn't use my newfangled platforms yet because I'm going to wait until I get it all built up before I, before I clean it all up and make it look pretty. So, but for now, I wanted to run some power over there, using the power towers so that we have an easy time getting back and forth. There's a lizard doggo. I don't know if it's one of mine. I think probably not. My 2 doggos are AWOL. Right, so there's the little Caterium setup that I have. And it's a bit of a hike to get over here, but if you've been to that cave to get quartz and SAM, then you know where it is. Right? Yeah, so this is the place. You can see that we've got copper and limestone right here. Whoops. Here, let me scan for limestone. Yeah, that's copper. There's limestone right there. The iron ore. That takes a bit longer, but there's several iron nodes over there, as well as the one over there. That's the pure node, I believe. So I think this will be a good place to build, and we can, we can just belt all the resources that we need, and then, as I mentioned, we have the Caterium ore right there. And what I'll do in this case is I'll smelt it down into ingots and then bring the ingots over. Okay, so this is the place for phase 2. And the first step is going to be building a foundation, right? So lots of trees and brush here to clear. So we have a couple choices. One, I can just build the platform up high enough to be above all these trees, and then just use elevators to get all the ores and things up to where I need it. Or, yeah, and I think that might be the best plan. Then I won't have to cut down trees and stuff, but we are going to have to elevate it quite a bit in order to clear all these. Or I could build it down a little bit lower and just cut the trees. So let's take a look here. Set this to vertical. Yeah, we'd have to be like all the way up about yay high if we're gonna clear all the trees. I don't really see an issue with that. It'll clear most of them anyway. I might have to cut a few down. Yeah, I think we should do that. Let's just build up. Make things easy on ourselves. So we'll start. We'll build our 2-meter platform up there once I get into the right mode here. Okay, and then I'm going to come down here and I will clear these trees. All right, and to get up there, I'm going to place a catwalk. No, actually, yeah, let's put the entrance over here. So I'll put a catwalk corner up here. Like so. And then I'll use the catwalk stairs. Right, and this is how we'll get up. All right, so let's start laying some foundation. I need a 4x4x2. All right, let's go make a blueprint for that. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to grab on in time. On second thought, I'll just build another blueprint designer over here. Because I'm probably going to have to make or adjust blueprints multiple times throughout this process. There we go. Where are the controls? Over here. There we go. So this will be 4x4x2. That's our 2-meter concrete foundation. Okay. All right, good. So the first one we have to kind of line up manually. Like so. All right, and then we can go into blueprint mode. Now you can see, if you see how the concrete icon there has purple shaded numbers below it. Whoops. I fell off the edge. That is telling us that we are getting... that we're getting our material from the cloud storage. Right, if it's purple, that means you're getting it from the cloud rather than from your player's inventory. Yeah, you know what? Actually, I think this will be easier if I just do this. Okay. Let's do this again. There we go. All right, so I'm not going to be able to make a whole lot of these before I run out. I upgraded the upload speed, so it's 30 now. And I upgraded the stack size so that the cloud will store 2 stacks instead of 1. Okay, so that's all that we have materials for right now, and we'll have to wait for it to reload. Which is going to take a bit, but we'll get started with what we have, and next time I run back to the base, I'll grab some extra stacks. Okay, now where do we begin? I'm thinking we should begin with the steel production because steel parts are required for pretty much all the other components of this build. So let's get started with that. We are going to need 280 iron ingots feeding our foundries. And actually, I think I would like to extend this over a little bit farther before I start doing that. I'd like to put the steel production over on this side since the coal is going to be coming from over this direction and a good portion of the iron as well. Yeah, so actually I am going to run back and grab some more concrete so that I can flesh out this foundation a bit more. I'll be right back. All right, here we are. I got as much concrete as I could carry, so we'll be able to expand this by quite a bit. I think maybe one more. I just don't, I don't want to cut down that giant tree, and I don't want it to get in the way either, so I'll kind of limit it based on where this tree ends, which looks like right about here. Okay, there. Now we can clear the trees. All right, so I think this gives us quite a bit of room to work with. All right, so let's figure out how many how many smelters do I need to give me 280 ingots. These are doing 30 each. So 3 into 28 is what? Yeah, 3 into 28 is 7, 8, 9, 9 and a third, I think. I'll just set up all 10. I'll just set up all 10 and then we'll split off of the last one. Okay, so smelters. And let's come up over here. We'll start, you know what, let's give ourselves a little more room around the edges. Okay, 10 smelters. We could make blueprints for these. Let's make a blueprint for smelters. And I'll give them a manifold. Let's do them in units of 4. I think that makes the most sense. And we'll run the belts and everything, and that way we won't have to do that later. And I'll put Mark III belts here. They can always be upgraded or downgraded if we need something different than that, but I think for now this is good. And what about the outputs? Do I want the outputs to be merged or not as part of the blueprint? I think probably yes. Okay, outputs are merged. I'm actually going to set the recipe to these to iron because I think generally we're going to use iron more than the other options. If we need to make something else, then we put the blueprint down and then we change the recipe, or we can make alternate versions of the recipe. All right, and then we'll put down power poles as well. Those. Right, and having these blueprints will save us a lot of time in the long run. Okay. So let's save that. We'll call this smelters for X. We'll find a smelter icon. There we go. Save blueprint. Clear designer. Give me my stuff back. Righto. Okay. So 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah. So we'll start building right here. All right. Now I'm going to take it out of blueprint mode because I want finer control over where this gets placed. Let's be aware of our inputs and outputs. Right. This is the input side, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So there's 4. And then now I think I can go to blueprint mode. Can I? Blueprint mode is a little weird. I might be doing something wrong, but I often have problems like that using blueprint mode. But anyway, we can do it like this. So that's 8. And then we want 10 in total. So what I'll do at the end here is we'll put down the 4 and then we just delete the stuff that we don't want, which is these last 2. Okay, and then we just have to connect the power between the different sections that we built there. Okay. So that's our iron smelting, and then let's see, how does this break off? We're going to need 20 going to make the plates, and then everything else is going to make the steel. So the 20 for the plates can come from this last one, right? Because this is going to make 30 a minute. And let me place this last merger. I'm going to have this last merger pointing out. Oh, wait a minute. 280. Oof. That's a drag because our belt only carries 270. So, right. So there's 270. Let me see. No, I'm going to turn this way. Does that give me enough room? So this one, I'm going to come out and we'll split. This will be the other 10 that I need for the steel. And then we'll place a merger right next to it. Okay. And this is the 20 that I need for making the reinforced steel plates. Right. So now for that to run, we need 300 iron. Right. And some of it is going to come from over this way. I don't remember if we have a pure node over here. Yeah, there's a pure node. So I can get 240 from over there. And then we can grab one of these normal nodes for the other 60 that we need. Okay. Now to do that, I am going to I'm going to build a logistics floor underneath here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put 2 tiles to get, or 2 foundations to give me 8 meters of space. And then we're going to build our floor down there. Now you see these gas columns? We can get rid of these with this guy. Oh. You just stick one on there and then press the right mouse button and there you go. Hazard eliminated. I'll probably get rid of all these. Just so we don't... Whoops, I missed. What I'm trying to avoid is having to use up... Yeah, I keep hitting the wrong button. I don't want to deplete all my gas mask filters every time I run through these things. So I'll get rid of them now, or at least the ones that are most in the way. There. Okay. Yeah, so I was saying logistics floor. Let me get back up there. The logistics floor will run underneath, and we can use that to run belts underneath the main floor of the factory. I'm not necessarily going to run everything underneath the floor. You know, I prefer doing this sort of thing, building on the same floor as the machines, just because for me, it's just easier to work with and see what's happening rather than having everything hidden underneath the floor except for the machines themselves. But then here, of course, we have to build out our foundation underneath as well. Is that correct? 1, 2, yeah. All right. And then we'll have to cut the trees that are the most in the way. Okay, good. All right, and then we can run... Yeah, and then we can just run a belt platform all the way over here. All right, where is that iron node? I think it's over there. Is that it? That might be copper. I don't remember. Yeah, that's our iron node over there. Okay. So let's go out another 10. And then we'll do a 90-degree turn here. Get rid of these. You can see now I only need 3 hits instead of 4. Okay, and then we'll go vertical here. There. And I like to build a platform for our miner, so we'll do that as well once I get this ore out of the way. Okay, So here we put a Mark II miner. We'll face them that way. Get rid of this. Is that right? Yeah. There we go. There, that's better. All right, and this needs to be a Mark III belt. Bring this over here, and then we'll connect it to an elevator, which I will place momentarily. Let's get up top. Let me think here. I'm also going to be bringing the coal over from this area. Yeah, so I'm going to need... I need 1 belt of iron, and then I'm going to need 2 belts of coal. Because, yeah, all the coal is over in this same area. There's... Yeah, this is our pure node right here, and then we have all the coal. So let's make sure that we... Let's leave space for the coal. Where is the coal in relation to where I'm standing right now? Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so 2 of them are there, and then the other 2 are around the corner here. Yeah, so let's have the iron belt be on this side, like that. And what I do, like in this case, is I just get the belt started right on the edge. And then I put my elevator like that. Okay. And this is a Mark II miner on a pure node, and that's going to give me 240 a minute. Now, if my belt could carry more, I would probably, for simplicity, just overclock this to give me the 300 that I want, but in this case, we're going to be limited by the belt capacity more than the capacity of the machine, so we'll have to do it this way. All right, so I'll place a pole there. Connect that to the miner. Right, and then in a case like this, usually I'll just run the cable and the belt at the same, or the power and the belt at the same time and in the same place. The power poles will actually extend farther than this if you want them to, but to me it's just easier to do it this way. You use a little bit more material, but material is abundant, so I don't really care. Okay, power is connected to the miners. All right, so sometime soon we'll see that coming in. And in the meantime, let's get this connected to the iron ore coming in. And that's a Mark III. All right, so that will feed most of our smelters. Let's get our main power connected. And once everything is built, you know, I'll clean up all the power lines and all this other stuff. It's hard to do, though, until you know exactly where everything is going to be going. All right, and then we just need an elevator there. Okay, let's make it point a different direction. There. So that's most of the iron that we need. And then the rest we need to bring from the other side. So let's continue building out our foundation here. Okay, and then we can go out this way to get the rest of our iron, which we are going to pick up over there. I will do that myself in between episodes so that you don't have to wait for it right now. But we can see that our smelters are kicking in, and you know, we'll have to wait for them to fill up and so on and so forth. Except for this last one. Or no, actually the last two. And I didn't connect all these. That's my bad. So those 4 are connected, these 4 are connected. And then the last 2 we are going to connect to the other bit of iron. Because these 8 are going to use up all of that belt that we just brought over. Okay, so we'll do something like this. Right. Okay. So that's where the rest of the iron will come from. Like I said, I'll set that up, but in this case, all that we're going to need is a Mark 1 miner on a normal node, and that'll give us the additional 60 per minute that we require to make this work. All right. Yeah, so I think we're good there. So what's the next step? The next step will be to bring over coal as well. But before I do that, let's go ahead and get the foundries set up. We're going to need 7 of those. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, and these are all going to be solid steel ingots. Whoops. All right. Now in this case, we'll need the coal. Well, obviously the iron is going to be on ground level. So I think, and we're just going to be bringing the coal from over there and then distributing it to these machines and nothing else. So in this case, I will feed the coal up through the floor. Those can be Mark 1s, right? Because we need 40 a minute. So yeah, so let's set it up like that. That's the right spot. Right, and then each one of these needs 40 per minute on the steel ingots. This is 240, so this will feed the first 6. Right, and then the last will be this. Is that? No, that's... The last will be... Hang on a second. 280. 280. Yeah, we need 240 plus one more. All right, I'm a little confused. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And these are making 30 each. That's 270. I need 280. Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah, we have the 10. Yeah, this is the last 10 that we need. Okay. So this will be slightly tricky, but not too much. All right, so we're gonna need splitters. Let's figure this out. So this is gonna be 270 coming out. I'm gonna put one splitter here. Actually, you know what? Let me let's make a smart splitter. I'm gonna put a smart splitter here. And I'm going to send the overflow out the right side. Okay, and then 240 will split between all these. Let's see, does that give us enough room for the belt? It does. Nine smelters is going to use 270, and we can carry 270, so that's fine. So the 270 comes out of here. 240 will eventually feed all of this, and then 30 will come out of this side at such time that it's ready. And then I can put a merger there. That'll take the extra 10 plus the 30. And that'll give us the 40 that we need for the last one here. Especially if I face the merger the right way. Okay. And then iron ingots here will go to the reinforced iron plate production. Okay, so we got that part done, or at least it'll be done once I hook the rest of the iron and the coal to it. All right, and then all of these steel ingots, there are going to be 420 steel ingots a minute. And it looks like these are going to two separate locations. So we'll have 300 going into the, well, 5 machines making beams and 4 machines making pipes. How many do we get out of here? We get 60 a minute out of each of these. And that's just what we need there. So I think, yeah. So I think a better layout here will be just to have these lined up 1 to 1. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, we'll do that for the beams. And that'll help us avoid using splitters for everything. Right, and then the last 2 will feed 4 machines. And I'll line up the first of those. 3 and 4. Okay, and these will make the pipes. 4 of those. So I'll just put 2 splitters. Right, 20 a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Oh yeah, 30 a minute in. Sorry, 30 minute in. And these are 60 a minute out. Right. So this makes the this makes setting up the steel production pretty easy, as you can see. Okay, so the stage is set. We're getting a good start here. So what I'm going to do between now and the next episode is I'm going to hook up all the resources, right? So the coal, the rest of the iron. I'm going to hook up the Caterium ingots, the copper, and I'll get everything run over here so that in the next episode we can just go and finish the rest of the build of the assembly without having to spend time, building foundations and running belts and all that sort of stuff. So we can just focus on the good stuff. And I'll also try to devise whatever blueprints I think we might need to help us do that, so that we can start making greater use of blueprints, right? Like all these foundries, for example. I know that we could make some clever blueprints that'll make a very compact setup. Right now, I'm not concerned about being compact right now, because if we elevate the factory, we can make it practically as big as we want. So I'm not too concerned about space. It's more important to me that we have a layout that makes sense and that is easy to follow, easy to build. Because at least at my level in this game, I don't consider myself an expert yet. I've got, maybe 400 or 500 hours in it. To me, it's more important that the builds are easy to understand and easy to monitor to see what is happening. And that's why I like to kind of make things spread out, put as much of it on the same level as possible. And so far, I think we're doing well here. So this is a great start. This will give us tons of steel, and then we can get to work building the rest of it, which should be relatively easy, especially once I get all the other materials brought over here. So I'll work on that in the meantime, and thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.